Welcome back to another episode of Cobra Kai Companion, and I am Peter. And returning is Joe Piarulli and also Luan Thomas, who wrote 408 Party Time, season 4. So welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Is there anything to talk about with this episode? Did anything happen in this
Nothing,
one?
not at all.
Okay,
Thank you guys for showing up.
Quick.
Was there anybody in this episode? Anybody come back? Anybody in this one?
I mean, there's that Stingray's neighbor, like he was the MVP of this episode. So, what I don't remember which episode with John, Josh, and Hayden, but I know that there was like a discussion about how they decide who gets to write which episode. Do you guys remember the discussion on how you guys ended up with 408 Party Time?
No, not really. It's kind of things kind of have fallen into a pattern that's like loosely seniority, and we've kind of ended up the past few seasons sort of like writing episode 2. There were guys write episode 1, we jump into episode 2, and then when you get into the rotation, you end up around like 7-8 territory. So it was kind of that, and then there does still end up being a factor of like looking at what's going on in the episode, and sometimes there are pivots that get made, but we were excited for this one kind of from the beginning. We knew we wanted to getting a chance to write some Stingray stuff, getting a chance to write like Terry Silver as Karate Kid 3 Terry Silver, which no one had gotten to do since the movies.
And the prom, and obviously Prom's getting
big prom episode. So there was a lot going on in this one.
It's so much. I mean, I believe the runtime clocks in at like 38 minutes, but it feels like a mini movie. I don't know.
We broke it as a mini movie, basically. I mean, that's
the initial the first writer's draft that we turned into the guys, I think, was 45 pages, which is, we never do that, and we like flagged it for them even beforehand, like this is going to be long, there's a lot here, and we kind of wrote the outline. We feel like this is, in terms of what the outline was, felt like this is what the episode wants to be. And the first draft of the episode, the one we turned in as like the production draft that became like the shooting draft, ended up being around 35 pages. So that's like the normal thing. But the episode still came in at like 45 minutes. Yeah. So there's a good chunks of things that you guys have not seen that were in this episode, which is always the case. But this one, more than any other episode we worked on, felt like the Cobra Kai movie. And we kind of approached it from the beginning as this is sort of like the finale of the season. And then you get to do the tournament. You know what I mean? Like that becomes like its own thing. So we kind of treated it like the big finale, and we wanted there to be huge moments for every character at the end of it, which there was. So.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it was on or off mic, but I had mentioned to you guys like 408 is one of my favorite episodes, and I always exclude the tournament because it's like that's a tournament. That's what we're building up for, for the 3 dojos and all of that. So like, excluding that, definitely like 405, because you got the Sensei versus Sensei finally, the rematch that we've all been waiting for, and 408. So let's start with the Stingray. I would imagine that when you guys are talking about like the outline for 408, you guys are given specific beats that you guys got to hit right before writing like dialogue and such.
Yeah, I mean, I think our first pass of it, it was just like, it was a Stingray cold open, and like seeing what Stingray's life a little bit was, like the snapshot of it before he goes back to the dojo. And there were different versions of that. Is it like, do you meet the sister? Is he doing odd job? Like there are a lot of different ways you can approach that. And I think what was fun for us is like a little bit of like a mislead of, holy shit, like his life is so together, and look, he's got his routine, and he's got like a fancy house and all this stuff. And then of course you find out it's his sister's house, and he has kind of this bully next door who's like trashing him for being a freeloader and all that. And PJ Byrne obviously is fantastic too. So.
And he comes out like Tony Soprano. He comes out, he's out, has the big cup of coffee, and he's the Danish, and he walks out to get the paper and the robe and like his fancy house, and he's just, and he's throwing robies on his neighbor's, roof.
Yeah, and you got to give them a lot of credit too, because like between PJ and Paul, like there's a lot of improv stuff in there, and like I wish you could see all the stuff that isn't even in the episode, because there's just so many different takes of them just ripping each other down. I think like the perfect circle of a body was a PJ thing, and then the like I know that I don't know a lot about cars, but I know that's not top of the line was purely Paul, and just one random take he did. So we had to like in posts we're like sifting through all the gold of that back and forth and just picking out our absolute favorites, but there were a lot more funny lines that didn't make it. So
in the past I have made comparison to like the writing teams, just comparing it to like the writing team of like Breaking Bad. You guys' callbacks and everything is just so meticulous, and you guys are working with like a shorter window too for the episodes, as opposed to like 40 some odd minutes with commercials. Right. The cold open kind of gave me like a Breaking Bad, like what is going on in this episode now, and and even like the frisbees up on the roof, I was like, oh, that reminds me of like the pizza on the roof, so I don't know if these were intentional, but those were definitely the feelings that I got.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, every a cold open is always an opportunity in this show because you get to do something that's potentially like, its own little story that, you want it to be connected to the rest of the episode, but it is a chance to like drop into something and be like, wait, where the hell am I? And how is this related to the last thing I saw? So, there's always that for that fun. And like Stingray was kind of on the shelf for a minute there. So you want to give like the big return back if you can. And, putting him against someone who's a rival and like sort of an energy that you've never seen before. And you add in all the frisbees and things like that. Like it has, it does, I know what you're getting at. It has like it does have more of a drama feel to it in certain ways. And then you get into their banter back and forth. So that was a fun day.
But we had to bringing Paul back it's so much fun that we couldn't just bring him back in any like regular, it had to be hype. We had to do something different. We were missing him in season 3. So it was, just to give him that kind of room to do his thing. And which is, it's the best. Watching him just sit back and do his thing is unbelievable. Yeah, like Joe was saying, all the outtakes were just hilarious. I can only imagine. I want to see the bloopers from season 3 too, eventually. Or they're not out yet, are they?
I don't know. If they're, I can tell you, we've seen enough things happen on set where there has to be a lot of gold.
Well, we're definitely recording this way in advance before our review of 408. But at the time of this recording, we got 4 more days until the DVD release of season 3. So maybe that's when we'll get those bloopers.
I hope so.
So obviously, most of the world, at the very least, Cobra Kai fans will have seen the show by now. So, we're not going to worry about spoilers. So on the subject of Stingray and his kind of reintroduction to the dojo, what is this line about like Dieter's mom? Obviously now we're like, at some point he met Dieter's mom, tried to get her number, or maybe he gave her his number and she just never called him back.
I think it's a little bit of like that's probably Paul's like a riffs in partially, but it's also the idea that probably Dieter's mom picked him up from class one day and Stingray said something and like offered his number, and with the idea that she would eventually call, and then she probably never did or never even took it down or something like that. So it's one of those lines that just like kind of puts a fine point on Stingray's role in this whole thing, which is like he's with them and like thinks he's kind of part of their group, but also like could date their moms. And he occupies just a strange territory that we love, but that is very specific, and not everybody necessarily enjoys that space that he occupies. But for us, it's like some of the most fun we have is shining a light on all it.
Because Craig and I, we follow each other and have been for seasons, obviously, and I just love that we finally got to hear we knew his name from season 1, but like he finally got a mention and got a moment. So that was really nice.
Yeah, he did.
So shortly after that, we got the Stingray and Kreese, and obviously we know how the episode ends. Was there like any kind of talk of like how hard Kreese must go at Stingray, and because like he really embarrasses him, and like me as a viewer, obviously I felt super bad for him, and like I've never been on that wagon, screw Stingray, or this man doesn't exist in this universe. Like I take everything as you guys give it to us. And so like seeing Stingray again was very welcomed. And again, him walking to the dojo and that discussion with Kreese, I was just like, I felt really, really bad for him.
Well, Kreese is thinking that he's just, at that moment, he's like, I got to win. Like I have to win. This guy, he's going to do nothing but distract us. He can't fight in the tournament. He's too old to actually fight. So like, he literally is going to he has no value, and it's like, why are you interrupting this? Like, what is this nonsense? And then obviously Silver clocks that.
You kind of need, because Kreese knows Stingray, he kind of knows that this is the only approach that has a chance of actually like repelling him. It's like he's a puppy dog, and you're gonna have to kick him, like, or he's gonna keep coming back. So in Kreese's mind, like, he just has to be like super direct, and even that you kind of realize doesn't work, because Stingray, like, whether he's trying to save face by saying like, okay, challenge accepted, or whether he really believes that okay, I guess like I got to prove myself again, he goes out sort of with that motivation to feel like he has to get back in with the kids and remind everybody that he's part of the team and be helpful and like show that he has value to everyone. And the fact that Silver clocks all this obviously ends up being relevant when you get into the end of the episode. So
and you guys also got to introduce the world to Vanessa LaRusso. Louis' sister. We found out that he's got a sister played by obviously Julia Macchio. Can you guys talk about like what it was like talking about introducing another LaRusso?
How much time you got?
She was great.
Yeah, it's the character from the, and I know you're going to ask us about the name. Like I will say as long as I can remember, it was always Cousin Ness or Vanessa.
Yeah.
Like, looked at our first draft and that's what it was. So I don't know, that may have been one of those things where like the guys had that name from the beginning, or, I mean, this was a long time coming. Like we knew we wanted to find something for Julia to do in the show, and she has you see the acting chops and the ability there. So it was just a question of like, what's the right thing? And I think we were always feeling like, well, she just looks like she has to be your LaRusso, because she looks like she just fits into that so well. So, there came this point with this episode where we knew we needed to like sort of delve into the Anthony issue, right? And that meant maybe getting a professional or something like it. And then when it happens that you have the prom and the photos thing happening at the same time, it's like, that's an opportunity to bring in some family. We get to bring Lucille back in. So it just kind of became the right thing of like, okay, well, the psychologist could be, someone in the family, and then you can play up the Jersey fun, and just like also just wanting to see a different version of Louis and him interacting with someone who is from his world, which, so all that stuff, getting to build that out. It's been a fun one.
I feel like early in the room, and we were debating whether it's going to be Louis' girlfriend or not, and then we pivoted to sister at one point. I remember at one point, I might be misremembering. I remember at one point we thought of that.
I remember too, like, and it's been brought up in the discourse about this episode of, and we say it too, is like the Marissa Tomei thing. And I look back at like our writer's draft, and we did, in action kind of write out that she's like a mix somewhere in between like Marissa Tomei and like a Sopranos, like the Drea de Matteo thing. Yeah. So it was kind of the perfect thing. You saw just how committed Julia was to it, and it's not like we gave her easy lines. We kind of did like what we do with Courtney, is sometimes you give like tongue twisters and things like that. But I think we knew this is one of the rare times actually in the show where we were writing a character and knew who was going to play the character before. And I feel like that helped, and it really built out the character, and it helped us be very specific and make you feel like this is a real person in the family who actually has a real insight and can sort of challenge the Russos. And then you get all the added fun of Julia getting to tell Ralph like about his parenting.
Yeah, I mean, we knew she was going to be good. We didn't know she was going to be like great. I was like, oh, she's going to be good, but I had no idea she'd be this great. I was like, oh, this is great. So really happy.
I'm sure you guys are seeing it all over social media, how much people are just loving that character, wanting a spin-off, or like just her kind of doing her own thing, not involved with Cobra Kai. But yeah, she was great, and obviously you guys saw that we interviewed her, Julia. Do you guys kind of remember like how many, if more than one, like how many takes for her to give like the diagnosis of Anthony?
One. She never in any take that we saw her ever missed a line.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very impressive. And I mean, like even Ralph's going like, I used to be able to do that when I was her age. Like, I don't know. She nailed it every step of the way. And and we were fortunate too. You get like, we got Lucille back in, you got Louis in, so everything felt like very full and a family. And I don't know, that scene, like the pictures and the prom stuff, that could have been a whole episode on its own. And the fact that, okay, we're talking about like a 3 or 4 minute section of this, kind of speaks to how much impact this part of it had. So,
I mean, the fact that we were even able to squeeze Rosa in, which, and that was a big moment to kind of kick Miguel off a little bit, to kind of get in his headspace and where he's at. And, like what about his dad and stuff, and just sort of, so there was a lot to play with in that scene, which was great, which is so much fun for us.
Yeah.
That's the dream of,
Yeah, that was probably one of the biggest, I guess, like foreshadowing crumbs here to what we could potentially see in season 5. Just Miguel just questioning about his father, and the little bit that we continue to learn as the series close out in season 4. So really exciting stuff. I can't even imagine. I mean, you guys all can continue just to keep like, bringing like bigger and bigger seasons. It's just, when I saw the season 4 trailer, I was just like, how the hell are they going to tackle all of that in 10 episodes? But you guys did it, man.
Well, it's all about using your real estate well. And I think the Miguel's dad thing is a good example of that, where he brings it up. It gets brought up in a conversation with Daniel about like, you ever see your dad, anything like that. Miguel tells you just a little piece there. And then Rosa says it's looking more and more like his dad in this episode. And then it's the conversations with Johnny where it's those things where
watermelons.
Like it feels like, oh, I got the whole path to this, and it was all set up and built up, but in screen time, it was a couple minutes in the season, that was setting it up. And honestly, if you do more than that, then you're maybe, giving it away. So we wanted it to be that, you were able to watch the entire tournament without thinking that that's where this was going, or that Miguel wasn't there because he's literally, off writing a note about how he's leaving. So.
Yeah,
I mean, he just wanted to have a prom. He just wanted to have a fun prom. That's all he wanted.
They all did, and that's what I love so much about this episode. It's just like, and I don't know how much you guys lurk on the social media, like specifically like Twitter, right? Like all the fan theories, like, oh, there's going to be a prom. Okay, what if there's a fight at the prom? Well, next Karate Kid, they were bungee jumping at prom. Maybe there's going to be bungee jumping in this one. So I love that, we get like our, traditional Cobra Kai fight, but it all ends up like the kids ultimately just wanted to have a good night of fun and just be themselves. Yeah. So I really thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was kind of the crux of that storyline, was this idea that Sam and Miguel are going into this night saying this is not about karate. Like, we finally get a night where we don't have to worry about the rivalries and not worry about karate, and just worry about like love, basically. And then Tori and Robbie are going into it as like, we're just going to go into this about karate and rivalries and get in our opponent's head. And then at the end of the episode, they're thinking about the opposite, and Miguel and Sam are thinking about the opposite. So it was just like a fun way to have them cross in opposite directions. And it was like, we knew this was, again, like this episode is so jam-packed, but we knew it was really important this is really the first time you're doing like Robbie Tori stuff in a meaningful way, where they're making that connection and you're building to a relationship. And, obviously Peyton and Tanner helped us a lot and made us look good because they had so much chemistry, and, you felt the connection between the characters, and they did so well with their dance and the Ferrari scene and all those things. But we knew it was kind of a key to, get them connected so that you can feel that they're going to have this relationship, or that something's going to happen between them. And it's not going to be because the writers are like sticking them together, but it's because the characters are in this place in their journey where that's what makes the most sense for them. So.
Yeah, it's crazy to have seen like, Peyton since season 2, obviously Tanner since season 1. And people are like, when I do like a live on Instagram, I often asked a lot, that sounded weird, but people would ask me like, oh, what do you think about Robbie and Tori together? I'm like, I don't know. I don't see it. That's weird to me. And like, credit to the writing, but also Tanner and Peyton, like they really they sold it. And I was just like, okay, you know what? Maybe I do need this. Like I really enjoyed them together. So let's just kind of keep the prom stuff together, including the after party at Stingray's. So there's one point at the party where Yasmin and Dimitri go upstairs, right? And then with Tori and Robbie, there's the whole scene in the car. So can you guys maybe shed a little light on like the idea in putting those in this episode?
Yeah. Go ahead.
You wanted to sort of for Dimitri and Yasmin, we wanted to get them. Just in my mind, Dimitri accidentally locks himself in a bathroom, or vice versa. Something he does something, but like that's where he disappears to do. But in terms of the Ferrari, like it was just them finally getting to that point where like, hey, we're a couple. Like we make sense. Like I have feelings for you, you have my back, I have your back, and it's really like these are two people that have no support that are finally actually supporting each other. And like Robbie had no interest in going back to the school, but he did that for Tori. And like, so like to make Tori feel better and to help her, I guess, be a high school kid and have a prom, I don't think he as the character really cared. And so that was a lot of fun.
I don't know if I think of like that scene as like the we're a couple thing necessarily. Like I think there can be still some room for discussion there, but it's interesting that like it sort of allows you to like kind of project anything that you're feeling about those two into some of these moments. And like, I mean, I don't know. It's something we've been talking about in the show. Like the kids are at this age where like, this is a discussion now about like, what happens when the camera moves off of them in the Ferrari and like Yasmin and Dimitri, like, I will say there were drafts of the script where like some of that was more addressed, and like even it's one of those things like when you're doing a prom episode, a lot of the instinct is going to be to like, are you going to do a storyline or have a discussion about like, okay, like it's a big night. What does that mean for different couples? And I think we found a way to sort of infuse some of that underneath without like making it like that you have to have like a scene in the school before prom where people are talking about it or things like that. So, we haven't put the fine point on any of that in a way, and that's kind of on purpose. So allows the fans to imagine or, project whatever they're thinking about those different relationships.
As a fan, I was shipping them from season 2 in my mind. I was always like, ooh, I like this two together.
It's funny because when we interviewed Annalisa, I asked her like, what do you think happened after the beach? And so her and I, we were kind of kicking our ideas. I go, I like to think that Dimitri, saw her walking and offered her a ride. And one of our listeners, who's a fan fiction writer, she took that idea and wrote a fan fiction of that evening, of that, the very idea. So to see it play out the way it did in season 3, and how Yasmin is just so grabby with Dimitri, like I'm here for it. I think it's really hilarious. But I like the idea of him maybe locking himself in the bathroom too.
I mean, that's just because it can't hardly wait. That's where that joke comes from. Like,
and we haven't even talked about like there's a big fight that happens. There's like all that stuff too. And I mean, again, credit to all the kids that the choreography of that prom fight next to the pool, and Peyton in heels, like. Yeah, it's this, like the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers thing. Like, okay, she can also do it backwards and in heels and karate into knock people into pools and things. So pretty amazing.
Because we wanted to have a fight, but you don't want, we know the tournament's coming up, right? But so you don't, and you don't. Usually those house party fights can turn into a brawl. So we had to kind of make sure that the fight stayed just a fight between them and didn't turn into our traditional sort of brawl. So that was we had to be very careful with that. And I thought that, obviously the choreography, like Joe was saying, the Fred Astaire, the dancing while fighting at the same time was fantastic.
And when you're going to do something like that like, a lot of the initial idea behind that fight was that it feels a bit like a dance, right? That you have your pairs, and it can stylistically, you can do some different things. And, Tanner kind of throws Peyton and you get like a big spin, like things that would be if you were doing like a big dance number, or like some of those things going in there. And then just from a character perspective, like this is one of those fights that doesn't happen that often, but like everybody kind of has something to say to each other in the fight. And part of what sparks the whole thing is that Sam's been kind of under Johnny's influence. So when an opportunity to strike first comes her way, she kind of takes it, knowing that Tori's, it's like one of those things where like Johnny says, like, don't take their shit anymore. And, she's gotten influenced in that way that may or may not be a good thing for her. And you find that like the answer is, using whichever style and finding your own style at the end of the season. But I think this was an important one to see her in sort of Eagle Fang mode in some ways.
So I was just thinking about how, like, during the fight, Joe, you mentioned, like, some things are being said to one another with the characters. Robbie obviously gets into Miguel's head talking about, like, I don't remember the exact line, but he talks about, like, my dad's just using you, for what happened with us kind of thing. And that lingers with him because, like, immediately after the prom, he goes to the apartment, which, so you guys get the episode, the season where the broken TV.
Yeah.
That's also in here.
We knew, like, we'd gotten far enough into the season where we were actually like breaking episode 8 or like getting close to that time, and we hadn't done the TV thing yet. And we were just like, we pitched to the guys, like, we know how the TV breaks this season. And it's like, Miguel finds Johnny on the floor and the TV's just next to him. And you didn't have to see it this time. You just know what happened. Yeah. And actually, like, this is a section I'm kind of excited to talk about. And it's not canon or anything. You didn't see it. So if people have their own opinions about it, but I like this. And in my mind, this is what happened is Johnny obviously gets his ass kicked kind of with Terry Silver, which I know we'll end up talking about too. But then Johnny goes home, is kind of drinking, and turns the TV on, and Top Gun comes on. And it's the part where they're singing, like playing with the boys and all that stuff. And this, with all the Miguel stuff swimming in his head and all the Robbie stuff and the things that Silver said to him about Robbie, the fact that Robbie is going to prom, he didn't even know it. And all of that, like, stuff swimming in Johnny's head causes him to break his TV and get out of control drunk. And Miguel eventually finds him in that situation on the floor, which then Johnny is singing, playing with the boys when Miguel picks him up. So.
Body's under overdrive.
Now,
obviously
during the prom, there was a few songs too. Did you guys write any of those needle drops in there?
I don't think so. I don't think we put in anything for like the prom stuff specifically. We knew like what the vibe of it was, and Tanya McKiernan, the director, who did obviously an incredible job with this episode, is such a beast. I think she had that song in mind, like the rhythm of it, and it would just ended up feeling like the right thing. So
you had the Kenny, that was all you, Kenny Loggins. I remember because you found that song, we were writing it, and you were like, whoa, this is the song you should sing. And I remember you talking to Billy, and Billy was like, wait, what?
Well, it was because it was the Top Gun connection. Like Billy, I don't think Billy really knew the song well, which actually works out great for the scene because you want him like drunkenly kind of pulling the memory of the lyrics and not maybe getting it all right. And then it was like the idea of like, well, it's from Top Gun, and remember, Top Gun is like kind of a trigger for the character that helped that. And I remember we actually printed out, and maybe I'll post a photo of it or something. We printed out like the lyrics and had those on set, so we were like having some fun with that. And obviously, I don't know if we were ready to talk about that scene quite yet or not, but obviously a big moment episode. So,
well, I mean, really, the only other notes I have. It was a brief sequence, but Louis talking to Johnny, like, I don't hang around with those biker guys anymore. So there was something brought up, I would imagine, to have Louis kind of address that, to make sure that they're good now.
Yeah, it was less about that and more about like they're in the same space and you have to do something with it.
Yeah, and he had nothing really to say to him, so it was like, what would you say to Johnny? Like, sorry about blowing up your car. You got at that point you picked the funniest thing he could possibly say.
Yeah, it's just a fun moment, and Yeah, I mean, again, the episode is just so big that like in a way, like everybody didn't get to do as much as we wanted them to do. Like we wanted to do like some Lucille and Johnny stuff too, and like yeah, there were different iterations where like we explored kind of each of those paths, which is what leads you to a script that's almost 50 pages. But yeah, so that was one of the small moments that like we were excited about, that we knew there had to be some version of that still in there. So
I remember the small Lucille moment that we didn't have. There was the shoes where Miguel comes in and she's like, take your shoes off. And Miguel goes to take his shoes off. She goes, not you, honey, you.
Yeah, she's telling Johnny, yeah, because she has like a long-standing grudge against Johnny in some ways. So yeah, we may maybe we'll get to play that at some point. But yeah, I think just so many characters in that space that you want them all to be interacting, and you kind of have to do some picking and choosing, especially when you have such a packed episode like this. But
so was that part filmed with Lucille with the shoes, or that was just written?
Yeah, that part I think we did have. We'll see. I'm curious, when deleted scenes and things like that come out, so we don't want to give too much away of what may or may not be in existence. But I know this episode, if there's some deleted stuff, I would definitely watch it if you get a chance, because I know a lot of really good stuff.
Because somebody had reminded me, because we didn't see like an interaction between Lucille and Johnny. Like I think it was on Twitter. So somebody just kind of tweeted out like, "Hey, how come they didn't have like obviously Lucille knows about the cliff, and all this, and like nothing was addressed." And I was like, right, they were.
We didn't forget, put it that way.
Right. Yeah. I would never. You guys would think we'd forget, but I'm always like, well, clearly there's a good reason for it.
Yes. Yeah. And, in Lucille in general, like we wanted to do way more in this episode too. And, Randy's just incredible and is so lovely to be around. And we had so much fun with her on set and writing for the character. And I mean, if you remember, we wrote some Lucille stuff in a previous season where she's talking about like the Coney Island Day and those. So we've always enjoyed writing stuff for her, and just to be such a packed episode that, you see every second of this thing is just like a roller coaster, huge moment. We haven't even talked about like Daniel chopping the iPad with Anthony and all those things. So there's just like so much big stuff.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to transition to next. So like my last two notes was, yes, Daniel and Anthony, and then later on, obviously, where he kind of just changes his attitude and really took in what Daniel had to say about him. And then I wanted to save the Silver versus Johnny for our last talk there. So yeah, I mentioned I think I mentioned this to you guys off mic the last time we spoke, that I never felt so seen as a dad. Yeah. For how Daniel reacted, because I am kind of known to be kind of a hard ass dad. Trying to discipline the kids, because that's how it was for me growing up. And we have a 9-year-old that is constantly on the tablet and is always watching YouTube, and it just feels so difficult to get through to him sometimes. And like, and I feel Daniel did what a lot of parents wish we could do. Snap that thing in half in front of them.
Yeah. Well, not all parents necessarily, I'm not saying you don't, Peter, I'm sure you do, have the skill to snap one in half like that. So kind of perfect that Daniel does have that skill, and I've
never done push-ups on my knuckles on concrete, so I probably can't do it.
So he has that move in his arsenal, and he also has some influence from Johnny happening this season, where he gets to yell quiet, and gets to sort of jar Anthony loose a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I think it is just a relatable thing that like that's going back to season 1. Anthony is like, he's on his screens and he's doing in his own world, and that's what Cousin Ness kind of diagnoses him with, this like, if you like, we did the research into that to like figure out what the real thing would be, and it's like, okay, a screen dependency maybe, and like IGD, which is like a real disorder, like internet gaming disorder, where he has like a bit of an addiction to it. So that moment where he's hiding that he's playing still and still has the screens after he's been told not to, that's just like kind of a breaking point for Daniel.
I mean, it built all Anthony all season was just getting under Daniel's skin, with the watching the car, all of it. So it was a matter of time before.
It's not like he actually washed the cars, but
right? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like undercutting his dad at every moment. So it was like, a little bit of
breaking point.
Yes, and it's also, Daniel and Amanda have taken their certain approach to parenting, and it's, Johnny kind of says to him, even like in episode 2, of like some kids like need this kind of thing. And I think what Daniel and Amanda reluctantly find is like, maybe Anthony needs a little bit of like the Johnny approach. It's not the right thing for all kids. And it's, a certain things that Johnny does would make him not a good parent, obviously. So it's about like finding the way to connect with a kid, and sometimes it does take like something like that. So
I wish it did.
Right.
So now you have the threat to break the iPad, though. You have the threat to do that.
Yeah, there's a precedent for it.
Maybe I have said something and the wife wasn't too happy that I did.
Same. I know what you're saying. Same.
Right. And we actually watched that scene together. And I was like, would you be happy if Daddy did that to your iPad? He goes, no. I go, so, if you could please just listen the first time when we tell you something, like we wouldn't be so upset like Daniel.
Yeah.
It's very real. There's some reality going on underneath that scene.
Oh, absolutely. So, you guys must have been like, I'm sure any word I use would be an understatement, but to be able to write, the Silver, kind of baiting Johnny to come to the old dojo. Can you talk about what that was like, and discussion on like what would be said? Because this is where, and again, like this episode, it ends with drunk Silver himself and sees this opportunity to use Stingray as a pawn in something that we'll see kind of pay off there in 410.
Yeah,
well, you want to talk about the Johnny part, or the Johnny fight first? Or
I think the Johnny fight obviously
kind of leads into it.
Yeah, it was going to be a big thing, so we knew we were looking forward to that all the way.
Yeah, and also we knew that we knew the idea of like Johnny just kind of going in and talking and then fighting is one thing, but like the idea to have him kind of walk in and get blindsided, like a solid kick to the head from that guy. I mean, he's concussed. He's dizzy at that moment. Like, so he doesn't even stand a chance. It's not an equal fight at all. He didn't stand a chance, but I mean, where does he go from there?
Yeah, there's so many things that go into this fight, right? Where Johnny's been motivated by this. Like, it's one thing to hear that, Silver is having this connection with Robbie. It's another thing when Shannon is coming there and saying that this guy showed up with money and is offering me jobs. Like, the Shannon scene always felt pretty critical to us, and it was great to have Dior come back. And and one thing that we always loved about that setup was, if you know Shannon from the earlier seasons, it's like she's like taking like mid-level business, affairs execs out for dinner so she can get free meals. Imagine if Terry Silver walks into that situation. It's like, that's the dream guy, right? I mean, he's got everything that old Shannon would want. So the idea that she's come far enough to say, like, I know a bad guy when I see one, and this guy is trouble, and he's too close to Robbie, and this is something you're gonna have to handle. So Johnny's taking that into the fight, and then Silver is coming off this like trying to prove himself to Kreese, knowing that Johnny is this issue that they have, and feeling like, okay, I have a way to deal with that, and has a plan. And then Kreese's approach to this too is a whole nother layered thing where he's seeing this and it's not what he wanted. And we knew another great moment was going to be, for fans of Karate Kid 3, or, remembering the lines of like, party time, which we didn't give to them. We gave to Stingray as like a transition, but he does say like, you want to see some more. And the traditional answer to that in Karate Kid 3 canon is, I want to see a lot more. And instead Kreese says like, no. So it was kind of like a big thing where like, that's so jarring for Silver because they've done this before, right? Like, this is how we do this. And you want to see some more. And then he says no. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is what we do. just a huge moment for every character, and it really carries them forward into the tournament. So
I think Johnny realized how much Silver was just sort of encroaching on his life now. It wasn't just the kids' tournament anymore. It was getting into his personal life. Like the shroud of Silver was just kind of everywhere.
Joe, and you mentioned Shannon. Like I guess if you don't really process what Shannon's saying, it sounds like she's out of rehab and Robbie's with her.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the feeling you want. You have to pick your like where you're putting a spotlight on things, but yes, like it's Robbie with Shannon. She's sort of has taken that role back and is in a better place, obviously as a more evolved person. And then, Robbie's going to go to prom and suddenly this guy shows up, which, again, if we had a 1 hour episode, maybe you would have seen the Silver showing up, to Shannon's kind of scene. So, there's a lot going on underneath that. And then the fight itself, like, Thomas and Billy are just like top of their game in terms of like they're so great, and they go at it with each other. Like I think for real like have bruises on their arms because they just like neither of them wanted to like they wanted it to be a really strong fight and feel that this is kind of dangerous. These guys are masters. They want to go all in. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's really it, the rest of my notes. But I mean, again, to kind of like touch on Anthony again, kind of just changing. Taking out the trash and all that stuff. Like it was really nice to see. I mean, like, I wish that would happen for me, but like just to see it, like, hey, well, Daniel's got to win here, Yes. And so.
He gets a win, and Amanda, like, just it is that cool moment of like Amanda's like, I don't know what you did, like the Miyagi magic or something, and Daniel kind of knowing like, well, that was more of like a Johnny magic that particular time, but normally it would have been all me, and so that felt like a satisfying thing, and when we talked to you guys about episode 402, it was we knew we were introducing Kenny, and Anthony had to sort of be in the position where he was, being bad kid and making some bad decisions, but you were feeling for him in that moment. I think you kind of feel for him in this episode too, where he's Daniel and Amanda aren't quite sure what to do with him and how to communicate with him. And he wants to be a good kid and he wants to admit that he screwed up and made mistakes in the way he treated Kenny. And it's just like, he doesn't communicate well, outside of like game world. So it takes Daniel sort of, jarring him loose for him to actually like kind of man up a little bit. A big moment there. And then I know we still have to talk about we're going to make everybody wait till the end of this episode if they're watching to talk about the I love you too moment.
Yeah, which I just tweeted out the line right before we all got on there. Again, what Robbie says to Miguel is clearly still stuck in his head. And for Johnny to have the conversation, I was shocked as all hell, and that's an understatement too. I was, but my heart like didn't know how to kind of take it. But yeah, Johnny calls him Robbie. I feel like the fandom. I think we do all feel like he knows that he was talking to Miguel, but clearly Robbie was on his mind too. It was just kind of like a slip of the tongue. But obviously, we see in the later episodes that like Johnny doesn't even remember that interaction.
No. Yeah, and we kind of tease that in I think in episode 9 where it's like I know what's going on with you, and Miguel feels like, oh, you remember, and he doesn't remember. So right. It's heartbreaking. That scene was a really long time coming because we had talked for even in season 3 and maybe even before that about like doing a version of the drunk Miyagi scene, and you just have to have the right thing for that to happen because it is such a big scene to be referencing and you want it to be heartfelt and all that. And I think we found the fun of like, okay, in the same way that Miyagi was singing his song, like Johnny's singing his song, and like in a weird way, in the Karate Kid, it's like you get the sense that Miyagi does this occasionally. Like this is not the first time he's done this. It's just like Daniel stumbling into it, and we know that this is not the first time Johnny's done this. So that it is like you have some context for him when you go into that scene. And Johnny's whole storyline has been about Robbie in this episode, like basically being challenged by Silver that, you know, it's a big night. He didn't even know he was going. Like, what kind of dad, like, as long as he's with me, I'm going to take care of him. And obviously you can't, and Shannon deserves better, all that stuff in Johnny's head. And then not real, like, then this guy is just like a monster and like can kick, like you can believe. So like Johnny sort of feels like he failed Robbie in that moment. And so it's an interesting mix of, and I don't want to say one way or another, like, you know, what lines are directed at who, but kind of the beauty of it is like everything he is saying is like, you know, I want to be a father to you and I want to be there for you. And I'm sorry, like, I'm not good at it, applies to both the kids. Yeah. So, yeah. And I really think it was like a Josh Heald thing, that it was a Josh Heald idea to do the "I love you" to Robbie as the end to that. So, you know, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I remember he pitched it in the room. I remember he pitched. I think he pitched it in the room, or he was pitching in the room. I remember. Yeah, I remember Josh.
Yeah, but the scene itself, looking at like our writer's draft of it, is fairly close to like once we knew that big piece of it, like everything just falls together. So yeah, it was one to write where like we were feeling it when we were writing it, like the heart, you want to build to that heartbreak, and you want Johnny's stuff to be so heartfelt and feel that way. And like, it's I don't know, it's like a Robert Frost quote, or like an approach that we usually take when we have scenes like this is, you know, no tears for the writer, no tears for the reader kind of thing. So when we're writing a scene like that, kind of push until we really feel it. And if we can get ourselves crying, then we know the audience will too. So seemed to be successful because everybody's talking about that line.
I think it's the most heartbreaking thing we've written. I honestly think that's probably the most heartbreaking thing we've ever had to put on paper.
Yeah,
it still says, I've wrote it, I've seen 1,000 times, and it's still a gut punch. You know,
it really is. And like, oh my God, you know, and when the Emmys come around, like what episodes do you submit, you know, like, and for writing, like, it's the entire season so good. But I'm like, your episode Party Time, it's got like all these comedic moments, and you got like all these fantastic scenes with again with like Tori and Robbie is great. And then you got Miguel and Johnny, just so many good things, and then just tugs at your heartstring there at the end, and then you just feel, for me at least, I just feel terrible for Stingray. And I've seen some people like on social media like, oh, he deserved it. I'm like, well, hold on now, I don't know if he deserved it, but it's still pretty shitty.
Nobody deserves that.
No,
it is the I mean, you're saying like this, there's so many different things in this episode, and so much, you know, a range of different kinds of scenes and things like that may be the darkest like scene in the show, or it's definitely up there, where the Silver is like in for the first time in sort of Karate Kid 3 mode, and in like sort of mania, and then this guy walks in, and Silver, having seen what Kreese told this guy, and seeing how much this guy wants to be part of the dojo, like it's like sort of it kind of all comes together for Silver in that moment of like the grander scheme of things. And he gets that, you know, Thomas obviously incredible, and you know, knowing where it was all going, I think is helpful. So for something like that, to like have the light bulb going off in the same time that you seem like you're going insane. So like it's crazy, like mad genius moment where it can read as just insanity, but it's actually like he's seen now 10 steps ahead of where he's standing. So there's like a joy that he takes in it too, that actually makes it like much scarier. So,
and you know, and I feel like him to repeat, you want to be Cobra Kai, and just him repeating that, I feel like it's almost like he's saying it out loud, like, hey, this is an opportune moment right here. You can use this. And it's just it's frightening, and just to see him keep going at it with Stingray, oh man, it's just
and we wrote out him saying it a bunch of times, and the laughing in there, like in between it, and the beat down, like getting worse and worse, like as bad as you'd want it to be, really. So there was another one that was like, okay, we're going for it. Like we're just gonna go all the way and let it be this. So obviously then it has a big impact on, what the end game of the season ends up being.
So that's all I have, you guys. I mean, Jesus, such a great episode. I mean,
thank you. It's,
holy cow, man. 38 minutes and it feels like an hour and a half movie.
Everybody was firing on all cylinders. It's a great episode because Billy and Sholo are just crushing their scenes. Thomas is crushing his scenes. The director Tanya, she's doing her part. Like it's a huge building effort, and
Courtney
everybody's game has to be.
Julia, it's like everybody was.
Ralph.
Yeah, man, they were there. Everybody was so great.
Tanner. So it's just we're lucky.
Yeah,
we're very, very lucky.
And we got to see them all. Like we got to bring in so many. Like that's so many different characters. Like you get Shannon and Stingray and Lucille. Like. There's just not enough time to give them everything, but it does really make the episode feel full. And we looked for a lot of opportunities that like every line in the episode we wanted it to have meaning because we knew that it was such a big episode. There's no time to waste at all in this one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've never interviewed any of the directors, excluding like the big three. But I would obviously love to speak with Tanya because I don't know anything about directing. But what I love about seeing like a new names director to a season, so Tanya and Mariel are new names this season for us, and I love how you're seeing same locales, but like the camera seems to be set up in a different angle, and it just makes the world feel a little bit more real too, just to see. Because I feel, and again, I don't know, maybe the ones that continue to come every season, they have like their favorite spots to where they put the camera, and like we've seen this stuff again. I mean, a number of times. But inside the LaRusso house, I'm seeing angles like I'm not used to this angle. I like it. You just you guys got all that room. Use it.
Yeah, it's always good to have, you could say it's fresh eyes, but it really is just like a little infusion of something different. It's always a good thing. And obviously we've, been doing it long enough and been on set enough where, we were able to be there for the vast majority, maybe all of this episode being shot, which was great for us to feel like, okay, we're seeing everything that's telling the story. And, and Tanya had like, there was a lot of challenging set pieces and scenes in this one in terms of the blocking and, directorial choices that, shooting the prom photo, the prom fight. And I mean, just like how many different challenges can you throw into one episode that were very well handled. So it's at this point, we got a solid team firing on everything. And the big three were involved really heavily in getting this episode to feel like the Cobra Kai movie. And it all came together pretty well.
Yeah, Cobra Kai, the Cobra Kai movie part 8.
Part 8,
yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you guys for being so generous with your time. Obviously, we've spoken with you guys twice, so I really do appreciate getting your insights on so many great moments from this episode in particular. So for all of those that are tuning in, as usual, we will have the links to Joe and Luan's social media handles if you guys want to follow them there. Joe's been posting plenty of behind the scene pictures.
Yeah, any requests, I got them, but I'll try to post some stuff when these episodes are coming out so people can see some of the I know I have some like prom pictures and stuff that I haven't put up yet still. So
I prom pictures. I'm going to put those up on Twitter at some point. I put all my stuff on Twitter, not really on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah. Any questions, anything you want to see, we have it. And we obviously love talking about the show and these episodes and all that stuff. So, yeah.
And we're here to listen. Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thanks as always for tuning in and supporting what we do. So for Joe and Luan, I'm Peter, and we'll see you guys next time.